It would seem as though.
It would seem as though we're back for another week. This is week 29, I think.
That's crazy.
I know, that is crazy because it feels like we just started, but then it feels like we've been doing it forever. So
exactly.
At the same time, it's kind of like, relationships. It's like, if they're good, they feel like they've just blown by in the breeze and that they've been forever at the same time.
Right. I always think that's an time. Girl, time. Time is weird.
That should be a whole other topic.
Girl, time.
But, you've come to the podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and nothing.
Again, mostly nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about a lot of things, but again, it's mostly nothing.
But are any of them going to change the world? No.
No.
And I'm Vesta.
I don't know who I am today, but I guess I'm Annika today.
Well, you look like Annika.
Great. That's good.
You're looking very Annika-ish today.
Oh my god.
You've got all your Annika-isms all kind of in place. So, yeah.
Good. I put it back together.
I mean, if I saw you across the room, I'd still know it's you. So
it's like a Monet painting. You're like, who is that? Oh, it's Annika.
Oh, it's
got
Annika.
it. I see.
No, I could actually see you from like blocks away and go, oh, there she is. You know how there's some people that if you see them in a crowd, they just kind of blend into the crowd?
Oh yeah, it's like most people.
You are not one of those people.
Right. I always say that too. Like, I don't know how to blend in.
Same.
And I used to be like, oh, it's because I'm tall, or it's because I'm loud, or it's because of how I dress and paint my face. But I don't know what it is. I just...
Same, because I, when I was working showgirl, when I worked at Darcelle's, I was told by the showrunner there that they could not ever use me in the regular show because I'm not chorus girl material because I don't blend.
It's like what?
I steal focus.
I know that is like the best like non-insult, right?
I know. It's like, okay,
you're not chorus girl enough. You're not basic enough to be a part of the show. Like, oh no,
right. Well, and it was funny because then and this was actually the mean part, but whatever. She was mean, so she points at one of the girls who's on stage and she goes, and unlike her, 7-Up. Never had it, never will. And I was like, oh, dang.
Oh my God.
And she's like, but she can blend into any group and she doesn't stand out and whatever. And I was like, oh, all right. Yeah. I'll take that,
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I know that I've had people who I've met once or twice see me somewhere and be like, oh, hey, how are you, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I see people out of context often and go,
who are you?
Oh, who is that?
Yep.
That sure is a person.
Yeah. What's funny is that, like, you working in a bar for such a long time within the queer community, I bet there's a ton of people who are like, oh, you. And you're like,
yeah, you too.
The only reason I feel the same is because of where I work and I see hundreds of people a day. And so if we go anywhere in Clackamas...
Right, you see hundreds of people who order coffee, they see one barista.
Exactly, right? And so like, when you and I have gone to Costco or whatever in Happy Valley, Clackamas area, without fail, I'll see one person that... I don't know them, but I know who they are. And we'll recognize each other. And it doesn't... I go to Target in Clackamas and we're like, oh, you work at Starbucks. Like, we don't have to do this every time you see me. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's funny. It's like, you don't have to tell me I work at Starbucks. I know.
I'm aware.
And that's always funny to me when people go like, oh, you're Annika. Or whatever. It's like, I'm aware.
Was there something else to that?
Or if somebody, because if they said to you, don't I know you from Starbucks?
Sure.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole, you work at Starbucks.
Are you accusing me of working there?
Right, it does sound almost accusatory.
Right.
You work at Starbucks.
How dare you? Don't ever talk to me like that again. So mostly if I see people that I know from work in that kind of situation, I like duck and hide because I don't want to have more small talk with more customers that I don't care about. And here's the thing, I like a lot of my customers, but I work in Happy Valley. There's a lot that are not my cup of tea.
White, privileged, annoying people. Yes, no, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
It's a lot.
Sometimes. I mean, I've said this before. I'm very fortunate that my clientele is one person at a time, and I get to now pick and choose. I had a client. I don't know that I told you this. I had a new client. He was a referral. Okay. And I'm not going to go any farther than that as to who referred or how that happened. Although I will say that my husband is responsible for this referral.
That's as far as we'll go, though.
That's as far as I'm going, though. But This guy comes in to my shop, and the appointment was booked by his girlfriend.
Love that.
Comes into my shop, and I was like, oh, hey, you must be... And for today's podcast, his name, like everybody else's name, is Bob. I was like, oh, you must be Bob. And he's like, oh, yeah. And I was like, so you're here for a cut and color? Am I? I don't know. My girlfriend booked this. She didn't tell me what was happening. So I guess so. And I was like,
What?
So, okay, that's weird.
Okay.
You're holding my business card in your hand, so you know it's a hair salon.
And when you walked in here, you see that there's like hair salon things, you know?
Right. And then I get him in my chair and I'm like, so what do you want to do? And he pulls out this picture of this luxurious long hair on a very, I'm sure, pretty woman, whatever. You only see the back of her head. I'm assuming she's pretty. Maybe she's not. Maybe she just gets the back of her head.
Honey.
Perhaps. Anyway, but it's dark to about the shoulders and then bright blue on the ends.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And I said, what I don't like about this picture is it's a straight line of demarcate, like brown to a hard line and then blue.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, that's what I like about it. Okay.
Yeah,
easier for me to do.
Yeah, girl.
Perfect. Anyway, the guy, somewhere along his life, someone said to this guy, you know who you sound like? You sound like Jerry Seinfeld. Honest to God, the entire time he was in my chair, he was doing a bit.
Oh my God, insufferable.
For 2 fucking hours, he was doing a bit.
Oh my God.
And I've only seen a couple episodes of Seinfeld. It's not my cup of tea.
Same.
Yeah. But dear God, he never shut up. And at one point when I went to check the color in the foil, he's like, oh, you making sure it gets done so you can get rid of me quicker? And in my head I'm thinking, oh my God, yes. Yeah, I can't get you out of here fast enough.
I might just beat you to death right now.
But when you call back if you call back I'm going to be so busy that I'm booked out for the next 6 months. Right. I'm sorry, she died.
Exactly that.
And we don't do hair.
We don't do hair, just perms.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But it was like, but for the most part, of course, I have people that I've been doing for years, and I really like them, and we get to visit and sit whatever. But having a job where I would be inundated with people all day long,
no, it's a lot.
I don't like people like that.
Well, and then you're on display constantly.
I used to be a people person, but people ruined it.
Agreed. And I don't know if I was ever a people person. I was a people pleaser. I think there's
maybe that's it,
right? I didn't ever care about people, but it was more so that I wanted people to like me. And now I'm all, go fuck yourself.
Oh, I don't care if people like me.
But,
I did used to care when I was young.
A young abused child, all you want is love, So you look for it in all the wrong places.
When people say to you, oh my God, this is my favorite song. Oh, yeah, me too. I love this song. And
the moment anyone complimented you, you're like, oh my God, they're in love with me. Oh my God, we're best friends. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard it. I heard it in the way that you didn't say those words, but the way you said the words you said mean you love me.
Also, this is like a deviation, but just a slight. It has to do with work and people being uncomfortable at you. Don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, if you think you go to a coffee shop or a restaurant, right? And you think that your server, barista, person who works there is hottest person to ever exist. You think that you deserve to be with them. Goody for you. Don't fucking say anything. Don't be with people in that situation because we're at work. You know what I mean? Like, we can't be like, go fuck yourself. Or, no, it's inappropriate. And it's like, not a fun time. And I can't tell you, hundreds of times it has happened throughout my life of people being completely inappropriate. I've had men like grab my hand and put it to their chest so I could feel their heartbeat. Weird. I was like 19 years old too. Yeah, I've had people like caress my hand. I've had people say weird fucking shit to me. And like, there's nothing I can do other than say, please don't speak to me that way. Like, please don't talk to me like that. Like, I don't like have security. You know what I mean? I can't.
Well, and the part about that, obviously all inappropriate, but the part about that really throws me is that these are the same men who would then go, well, I was being nice and she's just a bitch.
Yeah.
Because I was telling her how pretty she was or whatever. And it's like, nobody asked you to.
Yeah.
Nobody asked for your advances. Nobody asked for you to come up in here and tell me, what I already know.
Thank you.
Bitch, please.
I know.
But two, to then expect that we have now entered into some kind of relationship because you think I'm cute.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care about you. A, I'm married. Not that plays into it. But B,
I'm at work.
And C, I'm not here for you to ogle or for you to whatever. And it's like, I mean, my days of being ogled are pretty much over because I'm older and whatever, and people just don't ogle me.
But also, when you worked in a bar too, it's kind of expected.
All the fucking time.
Yeah, do it. But I mean, I feel like time and place, right? If I worked in a bar and people ogled me all the time, it would be very different than working in a place where I serve you caffeine to get on with your goddamn day. Right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And what's funny about that is when I first started dating T, I was talking about how it was always very irritating to me that when I talked to people at the bar when I was at work, most of the people who talked to me talked to my tits.
Right.
Because I always was wearing some kind of push-up, kind of like a bustier or a corset or whatever. And so the girls were always on display.
To your chin.
And I said, right, to my chin. And so I said to him, I go, so I guess I kind of have to expect that I brought that on myself. And he's like, no, you have breasts. How you display those up to you, but people still should have the basic minimum of decorum and just talk to you while looking at your face.
Yeah, I guess if they're talking to you, yeah. But I guess if you're a performer on stage,
if you're just checking me out and say, I don't care.
Yeah, no.
That's different.
And again,
but if you're trying to have a one-on-one conversation with me and you're talking to my tits,
nope.
No.
Uncomfortable. Right?
Yeah, it is uncomfortable. Also, and you probably don't get this much because most of your tattoos are not visible. When I would do the shows, people could see the tattoos on my back, and people would try to touch me, or because my tattoo on my back takes up most of my back.
Yeah,
they would try to move my garment so they could see the rest of my tattoo without asking.
Can you just take this off for me? That's
and
great.
The weirdest fucking thing that ever happened to me where that's concerned, I was living in an apartment. You remember my little apartment that we're in Southeast, and so it was a 100-year-old fourplex. So a guy comes, knocks at my door. I open the door, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Bob." Again, everybody Bob.
Bob, you again.
Everybody Bob. I'm your new neighbor. I just moved in upstairs. And I was like, "Oh, where did the nice lesbians go? I like them."
Yeah.
They were cool. Anyway, and he's talking, introducing himself, telling me, as if I care.
Yeah.
Okay, does this mean we're going to, hang out or something, Bob? Because I'm against that.
No new friends.
I turned around to do something, and he literally grabbed the back of my shirt to see my tattoo.
No.
I swung around so fast that I'm amazed I didn't hit him.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? And he's like, oh, you have a cool tattoo. I fucking know I have a cool tattoo.
Don't touch me.
How dare you touch me, weirdo? I just met you 3 seconds ago, and you're grabbing me? No.
I hate that.
No.
Yep.
Not okay.
Oof. See, I don't, obviously, because the only tattoo, my neck, on the back of my neck, but people can see most of it, and then my side, which no one ever sees unless I intentionally show you. But I've had people, grab my wrist because of my forearm.
And to turn it so they can look at it.
Don't grab my wrist,
don't touch
bitch.
me.
For my instinct to that is to, karate chop your throat. How dare you?
Right.
Yeah, weird.
If you grab me anywhere,
just don't touch me.
I'm most likely going to react in a way that you're not going to enjoy.
Yeah, I don't like touching people. At work, I touch a lot of people's shoulders. Hey, how's it going? Their arm, whatever. If I'm working with them, if I know them. But random people I don't know, I'm not that friendly with them.
Nope.
Because I'm not a friendly person with most people outside of work. You know?
Right. I get it. And I just for me the idea that anybody else's body is there for you to just freely touch, fondle, do whatever because you think you have that right. But it kind of speaks to our topic, today, which is social contract.
Yeah.
Which I kind of grew up thinking that we all were sort of, and I didn't know the word social contract or the term, but I kind of grew up thinking that everybody grew up with the same kind of mores and rules and guidelines for life, and it wasn't until I became probably in my later 20s that I was like, oh, there's a lot of bitches out here who were raised by wolves, and they were raised by people who are so entitled that they think that whatever it is, they have the right to do whatever they want, and no one can tell them different.
Yeah,
and that's what I get mostly with people like that. If you think it's okay to touch someone, if you think it's okay to hit on someone, it's like if they're trying to do their job and you're trying to get in their pants, don't.
No.
Don't.
No.
If you meet them at a bar and you want to go, hey, you look lovely or nice, gosh, your eyes are beautiful, whatever, great. Cool. Thank you. Yep. But after I say thank you, if I haven't said anything further, move on.
Yeah. Toodaloo. It's funny, the whole social contract part of life. I've said this often, and I say it regularly, that, you know, as a kid, I always thought that adults were stupid. But then I became an adult and I didn't realize how dire it was. That, like, adults are just really fucking dumb. Like, people are stupid and problematic and self-centered. Which then, being self-centered and not being, having any sort of social idea of how to treat other people, you just become more entitled. You become like, well, this is mine, right? Or no one tells me no because I'm privileged. Or, you know, no one's ever told me no. I've never been held accountable for my actions.
Right.
You know,
which we see so much with, like, now with the rise of the Karen movement.
100%. And, like, it makes me think of, like, remember the Stanford rapist, Brock Turner?
Oh, yeah.
How he's never been held accountable for anything. And then he was caught and had the shit kicked out of him for the big R word to a girl outside, sexually assaulting a girl outside of a dumpster. And the judge was like, well, I don't want to ruin his life. He's a good kid from a good family. But you let him, it's okay that he raped a girl? Like, that's okay? Like, you're going to allow her?
Right.
And so
her life will never be the same. But we don't care about that.
No. And so that's the thing, is, like, socially, even though, like, feminism is a thing and women gain power and quack, quack, like, women... Yes, white women are very much like white men, but women in general are still subjugated to men. On the whole, even if, like, we talked about this yesterday, talking about wealth, but, like, women, white women have the highest disparity. Like, white men make $1, white women make 81 cents. You know what I mean? On average. And so it's obviously worse, gets more stratified the further away you get. So if you're a black woman, you make much less money than a white man, right? But it's crazy to think about just how that's all been accepted. You know, and it's talked about, you know, the glass ceiling and the wage gap and the income gap and all of that and all the racism and disparities there are. But the effort to change it, the people who have the power to change it aren't trying to change any of that because they're the ones who benefit from it. They're the ones who don't pay taxes. They're the ones who have corporations of billions of dollars.
Well, it's like all these Congress people and people in the legislature who are pissed off about the act that they're trying to put in right now for veterans, for health care. And they're saying, well, they're just going to get free health care. Motherfucker, you get free health care.
Give them free health care.
You get free health care because of your job. And you are the one who doesn't need it because you have more money than anyone. And yet you're going to deny someone who went and, you know, risked their life for this country. And you're like, well, but maybe that thing they have isn't because they went, you know, to Iraq, or maybe that thing they have isn't. It could just be, you know, that's what you're going to fight. Is that maybe their PTSD isn't from going to battle? And
I feel like if anybody, here's the thing, you know that I'm not a big fan of, like, the military, war, any of that. It's not my giggity gig. I have been in relationships with multiple people who are in the military. My current spouse was in the military. But I think that if anyone willingly, which, because there's no draft, but if people sign up to go and join an active war, you should give them free healthcare for the rest of their life.
Absolutely. 100%.
You should pay for whatever education they want to have. You should help them. I think, well, I'm also, like, so radical because I think, I don't know, everyone should have free healthcare and people should be housed and fed. But whatever. But I think if people put their life on the line... But then, here's my issue. Yes, give veterans whatever they want. I also feel like we can't, once you start saying, like, well, they did this, so they deserve to live a good life, it feels like, well, then poor people who didn't join the military, don't deserve that. And so, like, I think that, give veterans whatever they want, whatever they need, because it destroys people, you know? A lot of what people have to go through in the military is ugly. And then what people do is come back and say, thank you so much for your service. Go fuck yourself. Like, who cares? I can tell you right now that Astra, my partner, does not want to be thanked for their service. Like, no one... a lot of veterans I know don't want you to be like, thank you so much for your service. It's like Vietnam and before who want to be thanked for their service. But, like, the Afghan and Iraqi wars, like, that whole debacle, people aren't like, thank me. There are some. But, like, many veterans I've met aren't like, bow to me, you know, or, like, thank me for... something I signed up for, you know?
Right.
Maybe I'll get hate mail for this.
Well, in that case, let's pause here so that people can start writing.
Ruminate.
I mean, you know, it's fine. Speaking of hate mail, I mean, not hate mail, but just mail. I'm going to ask that everybody who's listening do me a huge favor, and I realize it'll take a couple minutes out of your day, but if everybody who's listening to me could just send us an email that says, I'm listening. That's all you need to write. Because I want to know how many people are listening to us. Because... 7, maybe 10. Because the podcasting app that we create this through has a statistics button, which I'm pretty certain is garbage. And I'm pretty certain it's maybe just the people who are through this app. I don't know. Yeah. Because last I checked the statistics, it said we had 1 like. And I like every episode that we make. So at least, whatever. And it says we have like 15 followers. And I'm like,
But is that just on Spreaker?
That's what I don't know. Yeah. But they're supposed to track where we're on everything. So that's how we are supposed to get paid. Which, by the way, just in case anybody's wondering, we, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're on episode 29 and we pay every month to make this, but we don't make any money. If the ad revenue gets increased as listeners increase and stuff like that. And so far, we're not making any money, but we also aren't doing this.
And I'm really mad about it.
Yeah, me too. I didn't do... I mean, I would love to make some money at it. Sure. That would be awesome. But we're doing it because this is just a fun thing that we wanted to do. And we had talked about it for a full year before we started doing it.
And like a decade ago, before like YouTube was major, remember we talked about like we should have a show and call it the Bitchy and Snatchy Show. And then YouTube blew up and we're like, well, we missed our chance.
Well, and the problem I think with the Bitchy and Snatchy Show is who would be bitchy and who would be snatchy.
I know you could label me either of those titles and I'd be all, thank you, you're right. You are not wrong.
I am both of those things, so...
Right. But wait, going back to what you said, we didn't do this to make money. We get to hang out, and we get to talk shit, and we get to have, like, focused different conversations about things. I don't care about making money, girl. I have enough going on. I can't worry about another source of income. I mean, geez.
Well, as so wealthy white women who just work for fun.
Oh my God.
Who needs money?
It's so much fun working.
I just need a little extra money to pay the pool man when he comes to do the pool.
That reminds me of Mean Girls when Regina George is just like, I just want to lose 5 pounds. I just need a little bit extra pocket change is all I need from this podcast.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because when we were talking about wage disparity, it made me think of the actress who played Dion in Clueless, whose name right now escapes me and I don't care. Stacey Dash, yes.
Who's now a crazy bitch.
Oh, God, yeah. I saw her on several different shows talking about how there is no such thing as wage disparity, that black women and all women can make as much as any man. All they have to do is demand that they get paid the same amount. That's really how you think that works? You are an actress who gets paid to act, and you get an unreasonable amount of money.
I'm also assuming, though, she doesn't get an unreasonable amount of money compared to her cohort, like Alicia Silverstone.
Right.
But
Alicia's kept working.
But, like, my point...
Right, no, I get you.
Time,
but at that, can you imagine that is your reality, though? That your first job was as an actress, and so you got paid however much money you got paid as one of the leads of a movie.
Yeah.
And then... Because you don't just get...
Here's your one paycheck.
Here's your one... No. Because then you get, like, royalties and whatever. And I know it's different from TV than in movies, but she also did some TV. Blah, blah.
Was she in the Clueless television show?
I don't remember. Okay. I think she was, though.
I think so, too.
But the point is, you've already been in a different reality than the rest of the working world.
Yeah. That's why when celebrities, people who are famous with any sort of notoriety or whatever, talk about how, like, well, this is my average day, or this is how I did it. Like, not relatable. You know what I mean? Like, what you do with your life is not relatable what we do, because we're not famous, right? We don't have that notoriety, we don't have that fame, we don't have any of that. Like, people don't see us and think, oh, I know them, except people we know. You know, not the world. Not yet. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want the world to know.
Which is why I really love when some very famous people will say, I have absolutely nothing to complain about. Because though my work day, starts at 4 a.m, and I work 12 hours maybe or more in a day, I work for 3 months and then I'm off until I sign up for the next gig.
Yeah.
And I make more money than some small countries.
Yeah.
So can't complain, nothing to complain about. And it's like, well, yeah. And I love that you have that reality that you at least understand that the rest of the world is going, if only I had a piece of that. Now, I don't want to be at work at 4 a.m, and I know you are every day, but to then work all those hours, and so many of those hours are spent just sitting around waiting for something to happen. Because, if you're not in all the scenes, you still have to be there on the days that you have call sheets, but whatever. And that's not important. It's interesting, though, talking about famous people, and I'm getting off the track here. I saw a TikTok with my good friend, Tom Hanks.
Okay, love Tom Hanks.
You know Tom. Love Tom.
Well, I think I know what you're going to talk about. Anyway.
Right, well, because I mentioned it to you yesterday. And I sent you this TikTok.
Okay.
He was talking about how is it possible that a man of his age, and he's, I think, a little older than I am, maybe. I don't know how old he is. But that up until a couple years ago, he had never heard of the Tulsa Massacre.
The neighborhood of Greenwood, yeah.
Yeah, how had he never heard about Black Wall Street?
Yep.
And as he was saying it, I was like, same, Tom Hanks. I learned about it just a few years ago. I learned the atrocities that happened to these people, but it goes back to saying nobody wants you to be too rich or too free or too happy. These people, this was a very successful black community, making really good money, taking care of themselves, they were self-sustaining, and the white people came in and burned them down, ran them out of the state.
Ooh. They not only burned them, they murdered most of them. Lots got away, but they murdered a lot of people, and then they literally bombed them.
Yes.
Bombed Wall Street. Black Wall Street. What's interesting is there's the movie Watchmen that came out in like 2008, 2009. Well, there was a show that came out recently. Don't ask me how they're connected. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It was very good. Had Regina King in it as the main character. She's brilliant. But it does go back to, it goes back to history, and it shows people living in the Greenwood neighborhood of Black Wall Street, and then it shows white people coming in and destroying everything. And so it's really visceral and awful and ugly to watch and horrific. But this was on like HBO.
Yeah.
And this was just a couple years ago. There are, because of the class that I'm specifically taking right now, which is race and ethnic relations, there are many instances in which black people built wealth and then white people said, no, you can't be black and rich, and then killed them all. For an example of a community that was overthrown and burned down in the 1930s, and this is obviously later than Black Wall Street in Tulsa, but there was a man named Elmore Bowling who he started a little like livestock business so he could buy a car, and then he converted it into a truck, right? So he could start hauling more, and then he would haul not only like livestock but like kindling and different things for different people, right? And he made money that way. So his business started to get bigger. He bought more trucks. He hired people to drive the trucks to do more delivery. He built a church on his. He bought some land and built a church on his property. Built a general store. And so he also had 7 children. So on top of employing like 40 plus people to, grow different crops and to raise livestock, he, again, had like a gas station, a general store, a church. So it was like a common ground and a meeting place for the black community in Alabama at this time. Because he was doing so well, he earned a reputation of being like a philanthropist because he was just so kind and generous with his money. And there was a saying that said, the only way Elmore would not help you is if you didn't ask. That's the only way he wouldn't help you. And so he had so much money, and white people enjoyed doing business with him because he was fair and he always had a surplus of product, and they know that they could rely on him. Here's the thing. His businesses thrived, but white people got really mad that other whites enjoyed using him as a business opposed to white people. And in retaliation, in 1947, as he was on like the main road coming back to his property, a group of white men shot him a bunch of times and then left him in a ditch and took off. And no one was ever indicted for any of this. They also then started to like burn down his property, and his whole family, all the people who worked there, lost their jobs and had to flee because, well, the white people are all right. But I said this earlier when we were talking about this, that the reasoning for killing him was that they said that he was just too successful to be a Negro. So, he was upward mobility. He was creating his own wealth.
Right.
He was creating all this. And that's the thing. He wasn't taking from anybody. He was doing it fairly, justly. He did it on his own right. Employed people, had complete industry. And white people were mad because they weren't. They were fine, but they weren't getting
well,
wealthy.
And that's typical.
Mm-hmm.
And that you see that so many times throughout history. It's like, and I know we talked about it before, but like the community that was where part of Central Park is now. Mm-hmm. It was like, well, we want to put this park here because some white lady gave us a lot of money to build this park, so y'all have to move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And did not say, and here's X amount of dollars for your house. They're like, we're tearing this down. And they literally just tore down an entire community so they could build a park.
Mm-hmm. So that is like just three examples of how Black folks have built their own wealth, built their own community, and tried to, rise to the status, and every time they were demolished. Yeah. And I think that just makes white people look weak. You know what I mean? I think that, you just
weak, petty, horrible.
Right, you just destroy everything because they're building their own wealth. Like, it's so stupid to me. But I mean, it's even deeper than that, though, because a lot of the times, they would create... Here's an example, and this is different, but in the early 20th century, there was a law that said the only way you could be an American citizen is if you were white, right? You had to be white. So you could come from another country, but as long as you were white, right? But, so there was a Supreme Court case with this man named Takao Ozawa, and he was Japanese. But he was whiter than most white people, and so he went to the Supreme Court and argued, why am I not considered white? I'm fairer than all of you. Why am I not white? And he said, the judges said, yes, you are fair, but we can see that you're not white because you're not from the Caucasus region of the world. So the next year, another man came, and he was East Indian. His name was Bhagat Singh Thind, and he is from the Caucasus region. He's a brown man, he's a Sikh man, so he wore a turban, had a beard, but he was from the Caucasus region. So he went to the Supreme Court and said, if we're defining whiteness by being Caucasian, then I'm Caucasian. And they said, you're right. You have an ancestor that is similar to white people, a Caucasian ancestor, but anyone who looks at you knows that you're not Caucasian, so you're not white. So what that said, that no matter if you were technically Caucasian or if you had light skin, it didn't matter. The judges and the courts got to decide what made you white and what didn't make you white.
Right.
And so it
was is you had to be European.
Right. And so there was no hard and fast rule of whiteness because, interestingly enough, in, again, the 20th century, Mexican people were considered white. Today, people in the Middle East and Northern Africa are considered white legally in the United States, which has a whole bunch of implications. So if, let's say I was Egyptian, and which is a Black person from Africa, and I'm in the United States, if a white person ever did anything discriminatory against me, racist, whatever, and I tried to sue them or take them to court, I couldn't, because I wouldn't be Black. I'd be technically considered white. So they have no...
That's bizarre.
Isn't it? But they have no standing because they're technically white.
That is crazy.
Mm-hmm. The legality.
I had never heard that.
Well, it's the legality versus the social implications, right? Socially, you're going to see that person from Egypt and be like, oh, you're brown, you're Black, you're African, right? People are, but legally standing, you're white. It's weird. It's very bizarre. It's very bizarre. Yeah.
That is crazy. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to jump to a completely different topic. But still with... discrimination in this, just because I read this story this morning that I was dumbfounded, and I don't know why, because every time I see any story that has to do with Republican lawmakers, it's always shit that I'm like, how can they sleep at night? Mm-hmm. And this one was 20 different Republican attorneys general. Mm-hmm. I always want to say attorneys generals, but that's wrong. It's attorneys general. Filed suit over a federal school lunch program that prohibits discrimination against LGBTQ youth.
God.
So they want to be able... What they're saying is they want to be able to discriminate against queer kids. Mm-hmm. They shouldn't apparently get lunch. Let the queer children starve. They don't fucking care. Mm-hmm. And it's like... So there's this law that was written... It was written into law by Biden saying you cannot discriminate in a lunch program against anyone. Everyone should be able to eat. That is a right.
Yeah.
And these 20 Republicans were like, No. We think we should be able to hold the right to discriminate against whoever we want. And of course, because it's the queer community, it's going to gain more traction. And it's like, really? What is it? Why? Why?
What is the obsession?
What is the obsession?
And
is the obsession that so many of these people are the ones who are secretly, having little backroom, bathroom affairs with
tapping
boys,
their foot
in the bathroom and getting blowjobs in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then are like, oh, the queers are ruining the world. I'm sorry that you are, hating yourself.
You're self-loathing.
Self-loathing until you're trying to take it out on the rest of the world, but don't.
I had this conversation yesterday. I was talking about laws that passed and laws that are on the docket and just different things that have happened throughout history. And it happens, and that was like part of my point talking about those 2 Supreme Court cases, is that there are laws that are put into place, and then when Black people or people of color start playing by the rules, then the laws change to, again, discriminate, right? Like, happens with housing, with employment, happens with everything. In the medical field, there was like the Tuskegee Project where they... Tuskegee, yeah, where they... the men had syphilis, the Black men had syphilis, and they wouldn't tell them... They said they were treating them, but they weren't. They wanted to see what syphilis did to the body. Like... So my point is like white people just change the rules when people of color start to gain too much traction. But the conversation I was having was like, it's so interesting to me, all these like very conservative, restrictive laws, because eventually they're no longer upheld. Eventually, women were second-class citizens until they gained the right to vote. Do you know what I mean? And then that's like a non-issue. No one's talking about taking the right to vote away from women. But all of these movements towards real progress where like people of color, queer people, disabled people have more rights and are just treated like everybody else, eventually that'll come to fruition. And the people I was talking to, I was saying that my hope is eventually, you can't have like a Star Trek-like society with people who are bigots. You can't have a Star Trek-like society with people who think abortion should be illegal, or queer people shouldn't get married, or Black people are inferior. You can't have that. But that's like the entirety of the conservative base. That's what they think. But eventually, they'll just be seen as like foolish criminals. You know what I mean? They'll be seen as idiots who you worked so hard to prevent queer kids from eating lunch, or from using a bathroom, or from being who they really were. Like, those are all...
Or getting the medical treatment they needed, or whatever it was.
So you don't care about life. You don't care about... Oh, I'm pro-life. No, you're not. You're pro-forced birth, and then you want to traumatize all the children that you're forced to be born. Like, to me, it sounds like the antithesis of what should be happening.
Right.
If you want children to be women to forcibly carry children to term, people who can get pregnant, and then you're not going to feed the children if they end up being queer, that feels backwards to me.
Well, but if they end up being poor, if they end up being in the foster care system, if they end up anything other than
differently
being
able,
then they don't want to help them. They don't want to do anything.
No.
They want to force them to be born, but then it's like, well, now they're your problem.
And this is my biggest issue, is that the people who make these laws that are so restrictive, that don't want to help the people in need, are also the people who are predominantly Christian. And that blows my mind, because I'm pretty sure that your Jesus never said, feed the children except the queer ones. How about you clothe and house and feed the hungry, but the ones that deserve it? Like, that's crazy bullshit, So
and that's one of the reasons for me that when you see these like mega churches and these super rich pastors and stuff, I always think about, because raised in the church, the old passage in the Bible that says it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven.
Right.
Because once they get to that level, they have lost their humanity.
Yep.
And I don't care who they are. When you get to that level of rich.
Yep.
That all you're doing is trying to gain more money, you've lost your humanity.
Well, and if you're rich enough, you never have to... If you're a rich white person, you never have to see a poor person, a queer person, a person of color, a disabled person. You don't have to see anybody that makes you uncomfortable if you're rich enough,
Well, yes, and it makes me think of when Caitlyn Jenner threw her hat in the ring to run for governor of California.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, things are just getting out of control here because I went with my good friend to go on to my private plane hangar, and I had to go by these homeless people, and that just shouldn't be happening. But what shouldn't be happening is you as a rich person shouldn't have to see it.
Right, that's what you're saying.
Because you're all put out because you, as a rich person, had to go to your private jet hangar, which, by the way, not relatable content.
No.
And you had to see poor people, and that really bummed you out. And so now you think you should be governor.
That's so I know. It's
and
insane.
what would you do? What do you know about running a country, running a state, running even a city?
Honestly.
You couldn't even run the Kardashian family. You know, your ex-wife had to do that. And she did a pretty bang-up job because they're all rich now.
Yeah,
so,
stupid rich, right?
You know.
Exactly.
And none of them have a lick of talent. But that's a whole nother topic.
Different. Who cares about that?
Nobody. We need a break.
Okay, bye.
Speaking of breaking, one of my friends the other day is like, you know, I listened to your podcast and I always am expecting, of course, at the break for there to be commercials, but the commercials always just cut in wherever the hell they want. And I was like, yeah, I know we're supposed to leave space for commercial. They're supposed to place them where the breaks are. We leave enough space that they can hear there's silence there for that second. They don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
They just go, oh, just throw it in any place. I don't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It's so weird to me.
Who cares what these women are saying anyway? Shut them up. We'll just put some ads in the middle, sell some shit that nobody wants.
True.
Because that's how that works.
What else did you have to add?
What else was I? Oh, I was going to talk about something that has nothing to do with anything.
Oh, good.
That was just kind of funny.
Okay.
Is anybody who knows me knows that I am absolutely not a sporty, outdoorsy kind of gal.
Yeah.
And cut to me on Monday, kayaking.
With who?
With my cousins, Anne and Jean. They were like, hey, do you want to take the kids kayaking? And the first thing in my head is, I'm looking behind me like, who are you talking to? What kids, where, what, how? And they're like, we know it'll be fun. We'll go out, we'll go in the kayak, we'll go in and I'll teach you all how to kayak. And I'm like, okay. And so this was a plan I made like a month ago. And it was on the calendar. I didn't tell the kids about it till the day before. Because then, you know, they would have been like, is that today? Are we doing that now?
Yeah.
No. Well, the whole time leading up to it, like days leading up to it, I'm thinking of every reason why I can't do it. You know, it's like, I'm pretty sure I'll fall in there. You know, I don't have a waterproof person. I got to tell you, I can't leave that in the car. Someone can break into my car, steal my stuff. You know, all the reasons I can't do it. Right? I don't have water shoes. Anything. You know, but I still did it. The funniest thing. So that morning, when I saw them, because I was cutting both their hair that morning, and my cousin Anne was like, and I said, how do you get in and out of a kayak? Because that's my biggest concern is getting into something where you sit on the bottom of it. Yeah. Am I going to be able, like, if it's like a bathtub, I may have to live there now. Yeah. I just have to lie down in it and stay there. And she's like, oh, well, what I do to get in, I kind of lay on the ground and get on my hands and knees. And I'm like, well, I'm already out. Yeah. I can't do that. Then she's like, well, but we're going to give you this other kayak that's easier to get on and off, and we'll put it in the water, and you'll have to walk out into the water. And I'm like, I'm out. Again, out. Yeah. So they bring the like biggest kayak they have, and I'm like, thanks. It's a triple. It can hold 3 people or you. And so I was like, great. Get me on it. And I got on it, and it was not terrible. I mean, I was a little nervous that I was going to fall in the drink. And as soon as they push, because I'm on it, it's like half in the water, half out. They push it out into the water, and I'm now floating. She says to me, just don't move around a lot, because if you wiggle too much from side to side, you will tip over. Great. Oh, okay. You couldn't have told me that before, because then I wouldn't have gone, I guess.
I gotta go.
And so me and the kids, everybody had their own kayak. And Parker, of course, took to it instantly, and he's just out paddling down the river. And bye. Kinley, on the other hand, more like her mother, is going in circles, and we were by this long row of houseboats. She kept getting into the little inlets between the houseboats and getting stuck, and is like trying to get out, and she hated it. She was just like, oh god, she hated it. Very bad. Because she couldn't get anywhere. And then when she did get somewhere, she ends up almost all the way across the river, and it's a big river. And I'm like, come back. You gotta come back. And I'm telling her how, and like I know how to do anything. I'm telling her how to get back and do whatever, and they keep trying to tell her, you don't, because she's pancaking the oars so that they're flat, and they're like, no, you have to do them. Anne, I love it. Instead of, they were giving her food examples. Don't pancake it. Do it like toast. Yeah. It should be straight up and down. And put it in the water. do that, blah, blah, blah. So we, I don't think we went very far.
Yeah.
But we did it.
That's
we kayaked
crazy.
and I got
It's braver than I
back
did.
off the kayak,
That's
and so
news.
I'm not still living on a kayak.
Yeah, praise God.
So there's that.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't.
I'm not sure that I'll do it again.
Mm-hmm.
I know Parker will, but
Yeah.
Kinley was like, absolutely not.
I love
Because when I
that.
asked her on the way home, I was like, hey, do you want to try that again? No.
Yeah, no.
And I was like, but you seemed like you were kind of having fun. And she goes, no, I wasn't.
Is that what it seemed like?
You weren't paying attention.
Yeah, clearly you know nothing.
Right. But,
Mhm.
whatever.
She tried
That's
something
okay.
new. She tried something new.
Yeah. So we actually do have a topic here today, which we're kind of
We are
jumping
talking
back
about
on.
it.
Are we?
Yeah,
Are we?
everything we're talking about is a sociological social contract.
Oh, I suppose so.
Yeah, girl.
Because I know we started out with that and then kind of veered off into a million different
But
things.
talking about money, the government,
Oh, I suppose
black
so,
folk,
huh?
any of it, it's all it's all a social contract.
I suppose it is.
Whether it's like a good one or not, it's still a social contract.
Fair. Fair. I mean, for me, I started noticing things that didn't fit into kind of my idea of what society is supposed to, how you're supposed to behave in society.
Yeah.
Polite society, as people like to say. And I first noticed this particular thing when the one and only time I went to New York. And that was that people in New York City
Yeah.
do not care if the walk sign says walk or don't walk. They're going to walk when they frickin' feel like it.
Yeah.
And the people who are driving their cars aren't particularly concerned if it's a red light or a green light. They're going to go, it's like, what is chaos?
Chaotic.
It is chaos. And so people are like walking across the street when they clearly have a red light and shouldn't be walking. And then if somebody honks at them, they're like hitting their car and flipping them
fuck
off and
you.
screaming
Yeah.
at them. And I'm like, what is happening here? It's crazy. I mean, not everybody, of
Right,
course.
sure.
But enough people that I was like,
This is
this
a habit.
is too much. It's just too much, Bob. Yesterday, I was driving home, and so I've noticed this off and on,
Yeah.
like all over the place, that people just don't even care. That they will walk in front of your car and then look at you like, how dare you drive? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I have the right of way. I think, I'll jump back to yesterday in a second. But two of the things I think that have really screwed up society is the phrase that pedestrians have the right of way.
Okay.
So now they believe they always do in every situation. And that the customer is always right.
I love that those two things are the things
That's
fucked
it.
up society.
Those are the worst things that have ever happened in society in the history of the world. But no, I think it's part of the entitlement. It's like, being told you have the right of way. That doesn't mean all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're at a crosswalk where there is no light, yes, you have the right of way. Get in the crosswalk. Obviously, if cars are coming 100 miles an hour, you might want to stop.
Yeah.
Because they won't be able to.
Yeah, step out, see what happens.
I was the new flashing crosswalks that we have that you're supposed to stop at. I was coming home with the kids, saw the thing flashing, and so of course I stopped. And I'm noticing that on the other side, people are just flying through. And I was like, what is happening? That lady on the corner is trying to cross, and you can see the thing flashing. Finally, this car in the front on the other side, coming towards us, slams on their brakes, and the motorcycle behind them tries to slam on their brakes and ends up underneath
Oh my god.
the van or the car, whatever, that slammed on their brakes. And then the lady who was going to cross the street obviously was like, you know what? No. And turned and walked the other way. I was like, she didn't even cross the road at that point because it's like, this is too dangerous.
Yeah.
People are too stupid. And my thing yesterday was I was coming home and I'm trying to turn. And people have the right of way. They have the walk. The people who were crossing were having this lovely conversation and strolling as if they had all day to get there.
Oh.
But literally just looking at each other and just like chit-chat and blah, blah, blah. But these are young, healthy people, and I'm watching them with the slowest. I'm like, I'm old and fat and have bad knees, and I move faster than that. And at least I look like I'm trying to move fast. These people are just like, we got all day.
Mm-hmm. Well, I live here. This is my hallway.
I don't care what you do.
Stay
And
here, don't stay here.
right, I don't care. Well, and then obviously these are minor things in the world, but that whole customer is always right thing.
Yep.
I think that we, especially people who work in customer service,
Yep.
can tell you that No. I don't know whoever made up that lie.
Customers. But here's the thing, is it doesn't really fly anymore. Every job that I've had most of my life, no, customers come and say, oh, well, I'm a customer, and I say, oh, I don't care. Cool, good for you. Here's my name, and this is my position. Call corporate. They'll side with me. Go for it. But, like, anywhere I work, I don't care. Customer's not right. And people often will say things like, well, when I worked here 2 decades ago, I don't give a shit. Things change. Get out. You know, like, none of that matters. Oops. What are you doing?
Sorry. I apparently had enough of your conversation, and I'm just, like, pushing buttons over here.
And we're over.
That was it.
Another
Sorry.
episode.
I'm so sorry. I swear to God, it wouldn't be an episode if I didn't make some mistake on the computer at some point.
You geriatric, I swear to God.
I can't help it.
I know.
Stuff happens. Well, I don't have my mouse today because my mouse died.
So you have to use the touchpad.
So I have to use the touchpad
normal
like
people.
Shut up! I'm not normal people.
And why
I think we've covered that.
You just need batteries?
No, I tried every battery in the house and none of them work. And so I think it just died. I don't know.
You know,
my hand-me-down mouse.
As much as I'm sick of your shit, I would just die too.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
Okay, but going back to what you were saying about a customer's always right and right away bullshit. It's just the idea that in this culture we have a very like individualistic, ideology. We're all out for ourselves, and that is like the American way, right? Like pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Maybe if you just worked a little harder, you'd be more successful. But like lots of times that's inaccurate, and those same kind of things that you would tell a white person aren't going to apply to everybody. But there's most cultures, in a lot of like Asian cultures, they care about the family and the community. Indigenous cultures, a lot of African cultures, any culture that hasn't been just like completely assimilated into white culture, they give a shit about each other. But with the development in the modern time, and we have access to everything, people don't focus on anyone else anymore, and that stems from like, we don't. Back in the day, if you had a farm, you grew food, you had cows, whatever, if you had excess of stuff, or even if you didn't, you would trade with your neighbors. You would make sure they would give you wool or whatever. Things like that happened. And so that's it. Individualism, I think, is an issue. Because I think, yes, be unique, but give a shit about people around you. But then the biggest issue, I find, is what we were talking about yesterday. And that is the disparity that is in wealth, or the fact that the economy exists at all. And I know people are like, but money, we need to buy things, and I need to be rich or whatever, but no, you don't. So, but essentially it's just wealth in general, right? So it's wealth, it's the economy. And I know it sounds crazy and radical, but think about it. There would be zero disparity in the world if the economy and money didn't exist. And this is what I mean. The reason that there are nations that are quote-unquote developed and there are quote-unquote developing nations all has to do with money. There are nations that are poorer because of money, right? Because we're rich and because we rape and steal all the resources from everyone else, we're richer. But not only that, think about people in general, the rich, the poor, the disparities between men and women, between races. It would all change if wealth was not in the equation. Because what happens now is that, this is going to be simplified, but when white men make $1, white women make 81 cents. Other races make anywhere between 54 cents to 20 cents to 19 cents every dollar that white man makes. So there is actually no way to move up, right? There's no way for people who are already marginalized, already oppressed, to get to the point of a white man. There's not going to be it's not equitable. There's not going to be I worked as long as you did with the same qualifications and now I can buy a house. No, people are like, but you're black, so you can't, But if you removed income or you removed the economy from the equation, people could live in a house. People could afford food because it wouldn't cost money. People would go to school. People could then, and people want to say things like, well, no one would do anything. People are just lazy. That's not inherently true. People are productive, and people not only are productive, but like to do services. I mean, because think about it. If people could just work for services and goods, like imagine we grow our own food. You need someone to come, help you weed or pick shit or, tend to animals or whatever it is. People are going to trade services. You're going to be like, I can cut hair, but do you have any? I need this produce or whatever, right?
Right.
Granted, that's very rudimentary, but it doesn't have to be what it is now. And technically, we don't have to get rid of, we don't have to get rid of the economy in general but I think currency and capitalism is what's fucking up everything. Because again, if wealth isn't even in a deciding factor or consideration whatsoever, then it's based on the skills people have, people's knowledge, people's ability, and a value isn't placed on you monetarily. And when I was having this conversation with Astor, my partner, I was saying, I feel like because a lot of people who are the elite, that's why they hired field hands. It was beneath them to toil in the fields throughout history, right? You always needed the poor, the peasantry to do it. So what would the elite bring to the table? They would have intellectual capital, right? They've gone to school, they've gone to really good universities. That's it. You have no actual survival skills. You know what I mean? If we think about something actually happening, if there was like a civil war here, a lot of people who are elite, who've never lived in the country or grown their own food or know how to tend to the sick, would be useless, right? You'd have to learn very quickly. And so that's how I feel, is that we are, myself being studying a lot and whatever and wanting to be an academic, I also want to have real life skills. I don't want to just be like, I know a lot about sociology and women and gender studies.
I'm super smart.
But other than that, if, something happened and I needed to learn how to grow my own food or sew up a wound or whatever, I wouldn't know what the fuck to do. So that's one reason I think it's important for us to start learning actual tangible skills. I mean, you already have them. Your husband has them, right? We actually have skills, but above and beyond what our jobs are. We should all know the basics of growing food. We should all know the basics of things, right? Because why not? Why not? We can't live in a place and rely on a store to provide us everything. What happens when shit goes awry? So,
Well, and we saw that, of course, when COVID hit.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, things were not on the shelves, and people are freaking out.
Yeah.
And people are then hoarding. Mm-hmm. So I'm buying 36 packs of toilet paper, and nobody else gets any. Well, what? Why?
Yeah.
And because then I can sell mine for 10 times as much.
So that goes again back to both individualism and money. That's it. So if those two things didn't exist, that would have never happened. Right?
Well, and that I think also fits in perfectly with the whole social contract thing. Because if you were in a community and you said, okay, well, I'm at the store, there are 36, packs of toilet paper. I'm going to go ahead and buy them all up, and then I'm going to go back to my community and disperse them. Yeah. I would like you to pay me for what I paid or whatever, but I'm not going to try and make a profit on you.
No.
Because everybody's in the same need.
Yeah.
And that's the part that really kind of gripes me. It's even if he sold it for a tiny bit more, but there were people literally buying it and marking it up 10 times.
Yeah, insane.
Because it was desperate. There were people doing the same thing with bottled water. Insane. Mm-hmm. It's like selling a bottle of water for $10.
Yep. And that's why when people mention anything to me, when they mention things like, oh, well, the reason we have to cut these social services is because of the economy. It's just not good for them. Blah, blah, blah. I don't give a shit. You tell me about money, I don't care. Then just make it happen. Then just pay for it. Or don't, and just do it for free,
Right.
I don't think that we should stop housing people, feeding people, educating people, taking care of people because of the amount of money or wealth they have. When this system specifically has been set up to keep people down.
Yeah.
And so
and it's because the rich people who, let's face it, if they were paying an equal amount of taxes to the poor people, and I don't mean equal dollar amount, I mean equal percentage, everybody paid a flat, 5% or whatever. I don't know. They would be able to fund all of the stuff that they say we can't afford.
Everything. Yep.
And 5% is not going to hurt you. Because what do you need? Another jet?
Yeah.
You need another mansion? You need another tax write-off? Well, how about you just use your money to do good?
Yep.
And what's funny to me, and I know that we've had this conversation, that I've always had my silly, lottery, if I won the lottery, here's what I would do. Always, I think, the first thing I would do is be basically handing out money to all the people I know. Although what's funny about that is I never gave it any thought until yesterday when you were talking to me about that one man, the richest man ever in the history of everything.
Mansa Musa.
Who screwed up economies by giving people money. And I was like, wait, what? How is it bad to give people money? And so I never even understood, and I'm still not completely clear You know,
well, and that's in antiquity, it was different, right? Like people just stopped working, so no one did work the fields. They didn't have like the Industrial Revolution or anything at this point, so there was no there was no machines, right? Everything was done by hand.
Yes.
And so, I mean, if there were machines, there were also you had to make them work.
Yes, you worked them.
But yeah, so like when he's giving money to the peasants and giving money to everyone in the town, and everyone now is wealthy, nothing functions. It's different here. You could give people 10 grand and they would still have to go to work the next day.
Yes,
right?
of course.
But yeah, I get that. Yeah, I would also, I think the first thing I would do with money is we would go find some property and we would buy it, and then I would rescue animals, we'd grow our own food, and I would want to build like a little community. I would want to build little houses for people we cared about, people who needed homes.
A commune.
Exactly that. And I realize there's a lot of things that get a bad rep in our society which shouldn't. Like hippies got a bad rep which shouldn't. Living on a commune also gets a bad rep.
Well, I was probably 3rd through kind of 6th grade, that era. There was this whole batch of folks that moved into town who lived on a commune. Mm-hmm. It was the pig farm, is what it was called. But it was several houses on this one farm, and they all worked the farm.
Yes.
They all took care of each other's kids. They all did shared crops. They did I was like, that to me sounded like a cool thing. Mm-hmm. But the people who, like the grown-ups, mm-hmm. We're all like, oh, that's weird, and look at those kids, they all have long hair, and they all live in this one, that's weird. A commune's weird. Well, it's weird because it's new and different to you, but it's not new. No. It's been going on for centuries, but not here.
Not in Western society.
Right.
And the only time it has happened in Western society is through slavery. When you had multiple people living on your land that were enslaved to you, who were wet nurses to your children, who raised your children, who toiled your fields, who cleaned your house, who made you food. Granted, that was more of like, oh, I'm elite and you work for me. But my point is it was more of like, you were forced to work on a commune, essentially. But it wasn't a commune, it was slavery. So it's not new. White people and elite did this for the longest time, living in communities. Yeah. It was horrific. But if you could just change the horrific part of it, and people could live and have a permaculture and like take care of each other, I just don't see where that's bad or wrong. And but it does get a bad rep, and people being like, why would you want to do that? Because people are so individualistic, and how do they keep gaining wealth if they just have a little community that they spread their wealth in?
Yeah,
that's why we could only do it with people our family, our people and not, when we say family, we don't mean, we share blood, because most of those motherfuckers won't be living with us, near us. No. But like Auntie Alicia and Auntie Marie and Kate, we would have all of our family, our true people come stay with us. I would have
our tribe.
Our
village.
I would have, like some of my best friends, Sarah, Sebastian, whatever. I'd have all my people come live with us if we were bajillionaires,
Well, and now that we have learned that you are radical.
Girl, duh.
I know. But now it's like we got in this hot conversation or whatever, and it's time to go.
That's okay. Think about it, children. All of you listening, think about it.
Well, I mean, because I do think about, like, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and we had chickens, we would trade the eggs for milk for the farmer up the road.
Exactly.
So we always had fresh eggs, fresh milk, whatever. And that goes a long ways with a house full of children.
Yeah.
Of which we had 457.
Well,
so
I know that we have to go. One more thing, though. How many people now are living in, like, multi-generational housing with, like, a grandparent?
Which, by the way, around the world is normal.
Totally normal. And it makes you care about people. And imagine if you just lived in multi-generational housing and just toiled land and raised animals, right? You could be self-sufficient for the most part.
Yeah,
That's it. That's all.
All right. Well, and now that we have changed the world in our 1 hour that we are allotted every week.
Thank you so much.
I would like to remind you... like I asked earlier, do us a little favor, send us just a little email I was just about to say a touch of vanity. That's my work.
Don't do that.
Well, it would seem as though at gmail.com. And, you can still please send us questions, comments, queries, complaints, hate mail, death threats. We don't care. But please, if you could take a moment and just send us a little thing that says, we're listening, I'm listening, we're listening, whatever.
Yeah.
Also, we're looking into the venture of maybe having some little fun merch, some t-shirts and sweatshirts and whatever. So if that is something that might interest you, you can throw that in there too. But send us an email and then come back and listen to us again next week. Like, share, subscribe, and If you see us on Facebook or on Twitter, if you would share that with other people, just
Do it.
help us spread the word of us
The gospel, if you will.
talking shit and just being crazy people.
Yes, love it.
Yeah.
Here for it.
Are you here for it?
I'm here for it. But now I'm leaving because I'm over it.
But now you're leaving.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now it's
See you
time to say goodbye.
I'm not going to sing it this time.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
It would seem as though